support of our sponsors and, of course, of all of you. And I would like to mention who our sponsors are. Of course, our host and lead sponsor, the Sunrise Company, Toscana and Ana Lucia, Franklin Loan Center, Pacific Sotheby's International Realty, Orange Palm Vacation Homes, Palm Springs Regional Association of Realtors, and California Desert Association of Realtors. And with that, I would like to introduce Mr. Phil Smith, CEO and President of the Sunrise Company.
I always like this session because I get a promotion. I'm really not the CEO, but
Sorry.
there you go. Some of those letters. Anyway, it's a pleasure to welcome all of you market watchers to Toscana on a beautiful day in the desert. Aren't we blessed to live here? It's just so spectacular. We ought to be all looking in the other direction. In any event, welcome, and I want to start off by thanking all of you for your support of our company and our two wonderful communities, Toscana and Andalusia. So I want to remind you of our new build program at both Toscana and Andalusia. Your buyer purchases a home site. We contract to build one of our homes for the buyer. The cooperating agent, one of you, receives a 3% commission on the price of the home site plus the price of the home. You get that commission at the close of escrow on the home site, which typically occurs in about 45 days from contract. You don't wait for the home to be completed. Our team handles all of the details, works with your buyer, your clients, through the building process. You simply need to register your clients, and you can do that online. So we hope you'll be part of that. If you have a client who would like to buy their dream home site but defer building for a year or two, we have that program at both communities. You are still paid your commission on the closing of the home site sale. We also enjoy hosting individual real estate offices at both of our communities. We'd love to have you over for breakfast or lunch and to see what we're doing and to provide a venue for you to meet. If you're interested in that, contact any of our members of our sales teams. Turning to Andalusia, I'm told we have there we go, there's Andalusia. We had a very busy summer completing the renovation of the club facilities. We lightened and modernized the decor and furnishings to create more casual spaces, especially in our tapas lounge and restaurant. We redid the fitness center and we added all new fitness equipment, and the whole club area was re-landscaped, and it looks terrific. The club opened last week to rave reviews by the members and guests, and we'd love to give you a tour of the newly redone facilities. Again, contact our sales team for that. So with about 500 homes at build out, 225 are sold to date. The homes range in price from 1.1 to 2.2 million. We're close to finalizing plans for our new villa home product that will be located around the clubhouse complex. We're expecting to do two plans at about 2,300 and 2,600 square feet. We hope to have these available for sale early next year. 5 highly upgraded signature homes are under construction. 4 will be completed by next March, so we encourage you to show these to your clients who may be interested in a move-in ready home. Turning to Toscana. Yes, that's Toscana. We're having a very good sales year with a total of 56 transactions to date. We also have a great selection at Toscana of 11 signature homes. Like at Andalusia, these are highly upgraded and will be move-in ready when complete. Toscana will have a total of 631 homes at build-out. 527 have been sold to date, so the end is in sight. Home prices at Toscana range from $1.3 to $3.5 million. There are just a few remaining resale estate home sites if you have clients who are interested in building custom homes. So in closing, I want to thank you again for your continued support of both of our communities. We invite you to visit the model homes at both Toscana and Andalusia. We're open daily from 9 to 5. We promise to keep this message short, so I'm not going to introduce our sales team individually, but they're all here. Raise your hands, ladies and gentlemen. Most of you know them, and they're here to answer any questions you might have. So here's to a great season for all of us. Thanks for being here.
The heater's on, and within 20 minutes, people are starting to...
Need a promotion, just let me know. Thank you. I neglected to mention two very important people earlier, Mr. Mike McDonald and Vic Cooper, who are our partners in Market Watch, and it is because of them that this all started, so you'll be hearing from them later. I'd like now to introduce Kenny Cassidy, Vice President of Orange Palm.
Good morning, everybody. So you're going to hear a lot of stats and hopefully really helpful information this morning that's going to provide you with some helpful tools that you can take out there and help you get it sold faster. I'm going to provide you with a couple of hopefully very helpful tools, but the first one I'm going to start with is a giveaway. Everybody likes giveaways. I have a few of them with me, and I have a whole bunch more back at the office. So what I'm going to ask you to do, since you're a really smart person and you want to show off to your friends that you were here at Market Watch this morning, here's an excuse to take out your phone, take a picture of something, me. Well, you were going to take a picture of me probably anyway while you're here. Who wouldn't want a picture of me? Take a picture of beautiful scenery. I've already taken a couple. Post it on your favorite Instagram, Facebook, whichever you like to use. Tag me at Kenny Cassidy and at Orange Palm. Just mention you were here and tag the both of us. And for everybody that tags both of those successfully, I'm going to give you a really helpful little gift. I've got a couple of them with me here. It's in a box about this big. Hopefully a very helpful tool for you when you're at open houses. Some of the other tools that I can provide to you include a market analysis. You're going to hear a lot of market information here today, but includes a rental analysis for the listings that you have. Now let me put that into context for you, why you should even care about vacation rental, why that's important to you. If you've been to any of the Market Watch events before, then you learned some really important numbers, like the event that we had back in May. We learned that 50% of the buyers here in the Coachella Valley are remote owners. That's a really big number for most markets. We're a resort market, so of course nearly half or more of our buyers here are going to be remote owners. They don't live here full time. The National Association of Realtors says that nationally, 50% of people who buy a second or vacation home intend to rent it out at some point in time. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I think that means roughly about 25% or more of our buyers here in the Coachella Valley are thinking about renting out their home. So, if 1/4 of your potential buyers that are looking at your listing, walking through your open house, are thinking about renting out their home, I think it might be really helpful of you and smart of you to provide some helpful information to them. We all know the more information you provide to a prospective buyer, the more likely they are to be ready to make an offer on that property because they're armed with all the information that they need, right? So, what I can do to help you to that end is a formal vacation rental analysis. It's a document for your listing that I'll create. Put one of your photos on the front. I put your name on the front, courtesy of Realtor X from Agency Y. That way, when they pick it up and take it with them, and later they're going to remember who gave them that helpful information, and they might come back to you for any number of different reasons, even if it's not for that particular listing. So that's what the rental analysis looks like if it's for one of your listings. If it is you're working with a buyer, and your buyer is looking at properties, and your buyer identifies a property they think might be a good prospect for vacation rental, introduce me to them or send me an email with their property address. I'll send you an email back. I just give you the upsides, downsides, and revenue potential. I let you guide your buyer on what's the best property to buy. I intentionally stay out of that decision because that's your job, right? So I don't want to step on that. So I just give them the facts and let them decide for themselves. So that's what I can do to help you out. There's no charge for that. Trust me, I'm going to make you look good. I'm going to provide that helpful information to you and to your buyer. They will hopefully thank you later for introducing me to them, because it helped them make an informed, smarter decision, gave them the end results that they were looking for. So that's my pitch. It's really simple. Hopefully it's very helpful. At Kenny Cassidy at Orange Palm. Thank you.
Thanks, Kenny. I appreciate that. It's my pleasure to introduce Rick Hoffman, the regional manager from Pacific Sotheby's.
Wow, this is a good-looking group. You guys, it's really funny. Realtors, all the realtors that I know since I've been out here, are very casual. Now, I don't wear sport coats very often, but I'm noticing sport coats, and everybody is kind of dressed up. So I think you're looking pretty good. You might want to continue this with people, being looking good. A couple of things. First of all, I'd like to thank our hosts, Toscana, Andalusia, and the Sunrise Company. It's important that you understand that the relationship between developers and developments and realtors has not always been a pleasant thing. I can tell you the people in these developments treat us all very, very well and very professionally, and I think we should give them a round of applause for taking that approach. Now, over the last couple of weeks, Palm Springs Life has certainly stepped up, and they deserve a congratulation from us. They did a Get It Sold event that was off the charts. How many of you went to the Get It Sold event? Was it off the charts? You can, hello? Are you guys awake yet? Come on. But Palm Springs Life is another very valuable partner to us in this industry, and it's nice to have people like that in our corner. Second thing is, I'd like to say this Market Watch program that you're going to watch. Statistics, how many of you are experts in statistics, took statistics in college? I had to take 2 semesters. It was really lucky that I had a blonde girlfriend who was really good at statistics when I took them. Otherwise, I don't think I would have gotten my degree. But statistics are something we use every day, and they're very important for us to understand. Market Watch is a benefit for us because we get to hear statistics. And statistics can either be your friend or not your friend, but this idea of staying on point with the market is really important to you guys. But I would submit to you something. No matter how good each of you are, you don't create the market. The market creates itself. The only thing you can do effectively as salespeople is react and have the knowledge necessary to take advantage of the market. Is this a good market we're in? Is it a bad market we're in? It's not, it's just a market. So if you have the information you need to take advantage of the market, you can win in any kind of market. I've seen millionaires made out of real estate agents in totally bad markets. Just understand the market's the market. And we live in a time of rapid change. How many of you remember MLS books? Yeah, MLS book. How many remember the first fax machines that came into your offices and they smelled when they operated? I mean, they were stinky, but we thought it was hot stuff. Now we've got DocuSign. We've got apps that we can use. You don't even have to. You stand in front of a house with your iPhone, and all of a sudden the house is on your iPhone, and it tells you everything about it, including the dog's name. Come on. So we're in a time of rapid change. Each of you is challenged to stay up with that status of change. How many of you read the information out of NAR's meetings yesterday? Ooh, something's coming down. They passed MLS Rule 8.0. That means no more pocket listings. Y'all do pocket listings, they're going to come and get you. And there are specific rules. I would suggest to every one of you today, read MLS 8.0. It's part of staying up on things. So what's our lesson? Our lesson, well, I said something at Get It Sold, and I'll make a pledge. I don't have anything to give away. How many of you are from Pacific Sotheby's in the room? Raise your hand. Everyone from Pacific Sotheby's that just raised their hand promises to play nice in the sandbox with all of you guys during this season, and they will be the most cooperative, best realtors for you to do deals with. And lastly, if we don't stay up on change, at the turn of the Ice Age, what became the biggest bubba in the jungle? The dinosaur. The dinosaur didn't change. Anybody seen any dinosaurs lately? Dinosaurs ended up being in your gas tanks. We're going to electric cars. Let's not become the realtors of the past. Let's stay, because we stay up on information, let's stay the realtors of the future, because I can tell you, no matter what happens with technology, the public will always need you. They need to know that the white picket fence is real, and they need to know that their trusted advisor in their marketplace knows what they're talking about. Enjoy your time today.
Thank you, Rick. We appreciate it. He's getting his picture taken. Now he's ready to come up, Mr. Walter Neal.
Good morning, Coachella Valley family. How are you? All right, real quick, I'm going to start with a joke because I didn't do it last time, and I got a lot of grief for it. So, a banker, an accountant, and a real estate agent all get homeless and decide to live under a bridge, which is all too real in this state. The banker finds a cardboard box and moves into it. The accountant finds a cardboard box and puts it next to the banker and crawls into it. The real estate agent finds a cardboard box and puts it on top of the banker and the accountant's cardboard boxes, then slaps a sign on it, "Penthouse available in new development for professionals." There's always a way to sell. A couple quick announcements. Franklin Loan Center takes a lot of pride in being involved in this community and giving back. I think giving back and supporting the community that makes you is the biggest idea and the biggest concept you can do to be successful. I'm thankful for all the great Franklin Loan Center loan officers and employees that are here today. I'm not going to introduce them all, but thank you all for being part of Franklin Loan Center as well. A couple quick announcements, and then we'll get going with this. Franklin Loan Center, this November, we're celebrating our 30th year in business, so I want to thank all of you for all the support to get to this 30 years. We're looking forward to the next 30. And as I always remind everyone at this event as well, we have our Client Appreciation Party the first Thursday of every December. And this is our 10th year doing our Client Appreciation Party. I don't know if you remember when we started in 2009, but there was not a lot of people that wanted to celebrate or spend money. But we're doing it for our 10th year, so please come out, celebrate, have some food, have a beverage on Franklin, and let's network with each other. So thank you for all your support. We love you all, and we're looking forward to adding some value to you today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Walter. So, on with the presentation, Mr. Mike McDonald. It's all yours.
Thank you, Michael. Is this on? Can you hear me? No. Check. How about now? There we go. Okay, good to see everybody. Let's see here. Want to cover a couple items first. One is this talk will be over at 10 o'clock. So if you want to know exactly when it's going to be over, there's always an uncertainty. It'll be 10 o'clock, or within maybe a minute or two, either way. So that gives you a time target. In your handouts, I want to bring your attention to two things. One is this is what Palm Springs Life does. It's a copy of all the presentation today, okay? Maybe you've already seen it, but I just want to bring it to your attention. You can, if you can't see up here or you want to refer to something, just look at this one, okay? And also, courtesy of Franklin Loan, we put out a publication at every one of the seminars called the Top 40. Now this analysis is by subdivision. And we rank the top 40 subdivisions, country clubs, in the valley by dollar sales. And we do that every in the three seminars. And we also then break it down by city. So you see the top 40 cities, the top country clubs in each one of the 9 cities, okay? Some of the cities don't have very many. For example, Coachella has only a few on the back, but they're all here, okay? So you'll find this information, I think, very fulfilling and very interesting, because for the first time, you have an analytical look at each one of the submarkets that make up this unbelievably interesting market here, okay? So, now, before we get into the real part of the presentation, I'm going to give you a summary of the current state of the Coachella Valley housing market, okay? How do things look? And someone might say, well, wait a minute, this is the off season. That doesn't tell me. It does. It will tell you what's going to happen as we enter the hot selling season, which will start pretty soon, actually. So I want to get into that first. There'll be three speakers, myself and David Robinson of CVEP, and also Walt's going to come back in to talk about the mortgage market as it pertains to the subject of today's talk, okay? So these three speakers, myself, I'll kind of lead it, and then I'll bring in the other two because they're going to speak to the particular aspects of what the whole subject of today's talk is, okay? Before we get there, though, I want to talk about the current market as it pertains to Coachella Valley. Here is the picture, and by the way, you'll see all these on that monthly publication you get from the two boards. Palm Springs Association of Realtors, CDAR, have come together to produce this through us, which we very much appreciate your trust and belief in us to do this. Analytical report that goes out on a monthly basis that keeps track of how things are looking, okay? This chart is the first chart of the first page of the report. What it is the regional detached home price for the region, the Coachella Valley, makes all-time seasonal high. Okay, now there's a seasonality in the pricing. You can see it almost always makes a low in September, rises up during the year and comes back. There's a season, you'll see this a lot in the next slide on the condominium market. But in the detached market, you see shades of it too. So you cannot compare. Is this going in and out? Is it affecting anybody? Okay. So really, you have to compare price in a certain month to previous months. You can't compare August with, let's say, January, because of the seasonal effect. So you should look at how this September, this is the September price, $405,000. It was the highest September price going back to 2002, excuse me. Going back to 2002. You see, this is the bubble, the crash, and the recovery. 2002 to 2019. So that's 17 years of time. So you have a long pattern there. So right now we've made the all-time high in this index in September. Condominium market, your seasonality here, I said you can see this, stands right out. The give and take, it hits bottoms around September. This is condominium prices. And this is attached homes continue to form an upward trending seasonal price pattern. Very seasonal here, much more than the detached market. Primarily because so many of the owners of the condominium market are seasonal visitors. So that creates a much more intense seasonal pattern than you get in the single family detached resident market. And we have not made highs of the previous bubble period, but we are in an uptrend, and we're doing very well here. Now, sales. Now, the seasonal pattern of sales is very interesting. This goes back to 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And this is total sales, this is detached sales, and this is condominium sales, okay? Of course, that plus that equals that, right? That's simple. Those two bottom lines add up to the top line. And this is 3-month average. You don't want to take a look at the 1 month. 1 month is this much. 3 months is just long enough to get a consistent pattern, and it also shows the seasonality, okay? And that's why the ups and downs. For the same reason, you should only compare a number against previous months in previous years, okay? Now, we had a problem here. Sales dropped last year about 5%, and it carried on into 2019. But suddenly, around May or June, things started reversing. You can start seeing this reversal occur. For the last 5 or 6 months, the 3-month average has exceeded the previous September, or in this case, September. Total sales this last September, 815 units a month. Last September, 780. So we're starting to see, for really after a year of decline, the first signs that sales are turning. that means they're going to turn also when things pick up. That's the rule of what we've learned from these studies, that a pattern that exists in the off season tends to carry over into the on season, which gives some predictability to the patterns, you see? That's what I want you to understand. And that will give this more impingement and force into the argument here. Now, inventory, so in other words, sales is buying, that's on the upswing. Inventory, again, we go back to 2014 here. Again, the seasonality is obvious. Generally reaches a bottom sometime. This is October 1st numbers. The latest number is 2,736 units. That was the lowest inventory number going back 5 years, okay? So that inventory is what? That is sales. So Valley housing inventory hits all-time seasonal low. Okay, it's interesting. We were kind of wondering with higher prices, you know, you think, are more people going to list their homes? That's always the question. Prices are going up. Are more people going to start selling? We're not seeing any sign of that. We're seeing just the opposite. That's an interesting. That should stand out right there. That's something to be thought about. And the metric that measures that is a ratio called months of sales. Months of sales ratio is the inventory divided by the sales rate, the monthly sales rate. If you have 1,000 homes for sale and you're selling 100 a month, what's the months of sales ratio? It'd be 10 months. It's how many months at that sales rate would it take to liquidate that inventory to zero? Okay? And here also there's a seasonality here. High numbers measure the balance really of supply and demand. Okay? A high ratio is high supply, low demand. That's not good for pricing. Low supply, high demand are these low numbers. 3.4 months, okay? Last year it was 3.3. But this is the lowest. So, I mean, my goodness, this is amazing. Now, you won't have this slide in here. I threw this one in here just to confuse you. No, to show you a different dimension of this statistic that has, I think, important meaning to you, because that's the average. The numbers you saw before were the average for the whole region. How about the different price ranges? What does the supply-demand say in the $1 million range versus the $200,000 home range? That's what this shows you. Okay? At the bottom here, we have price brackets. Under 200,000, 200 to 300,000, 300 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, all the way up to over $1 million. Okay? Now, as you already know, more expensive homes take longer to sell. There's fewer buyers. And so this upward pattern is normal. You expect that. You expect it to take longer. Here it's 7.8 months. You take the inventory of $1 million homes divided by the sale rate of $1 million homes, and it's 7.8 months. Versus $200,000 homes, you take that inventory, divide by the sales rate, it's like 1.9 months. So you get this upward slope. But nothing's out of whack here. But that's a new technical term, by the way. Out of whack. Nothing's out of whack. Matter of fact, these other numbers here are last year's ratios. So everything across the whole price spectrum, besides that, the overall result for the region, there's nothing out of whack in the various price ranges. So that's important. Also, price discounts, how much you have to give to sell the home. You know, it's listed for this. What's the average? Sometimes you get a price over. That's in the hot markets, but we haven't seen that. This goes back to 2014. Used to be, you had to discount the price 2.8%. Now that's for the whole region. Whoops, sorry. That's for the whole region. I can do it by price range, but you're going to get the same result. It went to 2.7, 2.5, 2.4, 1.9. So the discounts you have to get to sell is getting less. Okay? And also the number of days it takes to sell a home. The median number, that's half sell for more number of days, half sell for less. The median is 65 days. A year ago it was 66. A year before that, 71, 80. So here you've got the median number of days in the market has been low and stable for 3 years. Okay? These are very important, the standard metrics you use to assess the market, how the condition of it. So, summary and conclusion. Prices are up. All-time highs on a number of indexes, especially Palm Springs, my goodness. Sales, the buying, starting to grow again. Inventory, selling is down. Balance of supply and demand, very positive. Hasn't been this positive as it's been for the last 5 or 6 years. Price discounts are down. Not much, but they're trending down every year. It's positive. Days to sell, stable. All major Valley housing metrics are running on high octane. Anybody remember that term? I don't know. Data. And firing hard on all cylinders. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've tried hard to come up with something negative. I have. I studied it. I thought, well, I can't go up there and just talk. They'll think I'm puffing things up, you know. I'm not. It's one of those moments. There's nothing to be negative about. Okay? So that's a fact. I've always tried to be completely honest with you. Those reports were objective as possible. You know, we're not there to sell you. We're there to inform you. And I can't find anything really negative to say. I'll keep trying. Okay? Now, into the day's talk. What makes Valley housing different? What makes this area so unique is what's the fun part of analyzing it, is that here's a chart of the 9 major cities and how many homes are in each city. There's 22,000 in Indio, 25,000 in Palm Desert. This is called housing stock. That's condominiums and single-family residences. The highest is in Palm Springs. There's almost 27,000 condominiums and single-family in Palm Springs, okay? But now we've broken it down into these 2 components. You can see the color better over here. I think you can see it too well on this screen. This is dark blue. This is the owner-occupied housing and the remotely owned. Remotely owned are second homes primarily and rental properties. That's a property that a person doesn't live in. They own it for other purposes. They live somewhere else. At least, generally, this is what makes it interesting. This is the subject of today's talk, this darker color. So we decided to break, since it's such an interesting breakup, almost 50-50, we decided to attack and explain this market to you by having a November talk or seminar on the owner-occupied market, the people who live and work here, that buying component, and have the May seminar on the remote owner market. And because they come together in this 50-50 mix. We created a model. The Market Watch's Valley housing model basically is very simply put, the Valley's housing model is an approximate 50-50 mix of 2 independent buyer markets. Now normally you go to Los Angeles or any other place and it's like 90% owner-occupied, maybe 10% remotely owned. So it's dominated by the people who live and work there in the region. That dynamic. Here it's 50-50, which means the supply and demand, you see, is different. It's a mix of these 2. So what drives the remote owners, the second home buyers, are different factors than the people who want to buy, who live here and work here. Remote owners are driven by second home and investor wants and needs, a wealth effect, lifestyle desires, winter weather relief, investments in rental income and/or rental income. The subject of today's talk, which is the owner-occupied market, which are the people who live and work here, those buyers, or the ones who retire here and are going to stay here full time. Owner-occupiers are driven by the desire to own, interest rates, affordability, credit rating, wages, employment growth, and population increases. The reason I have that in red is because the second speaker we're going to have, David Robinson, okay, from CVEP, Coachella Valley Economic Partnerships, CVEP. It's a big group of all the businesses out here. He's going to talk about these factors and how it's going to affect the owner-occupied market. Then we're going to have Walt come in and talk about the other components, okay? So where is he? Yeah, come on up here, Dave. I think I will. There he is, Dave Robinson. There you go.
Can everybody hear me? Is it working? No?
He's getting it now.
Gotta get it?
Turn me off.
Working? Okay, good, good. Okay, so I've got a lot of notes, but I am having a hard time paying attention because I'm looking at this view behind all you people. Just take a little turn and look around and see, it's just spectacular. So I grew up in Minnesota, so I am still kind of shocked that this is happening, and I'm kind of shocked that I'm here, so I may get distracted for a minute here. Is this still going? So good morning, everyone. I'm going to start out my presentation with a little audience participation, if you wouldn't mind. So I just have one easy question, and there's really only one answer. With a show of hands, how many of people here like maps? Okay, that's a good showing. I would think realtors would like maps. It makes sense. Well, I love maps, and you'll see that here in a minute. So I'll be showing you lots and lots of them. And you might want to look along in your packet because there's a lot of, maybe I should just abandon this? I don't know. Is it working? How about this one? Yeah, no, I've got it on. Is it okay?
Yeah.
I have to stand still or something. Okay, so first of all, I want to thank the organizers of the event for inviting me to present here. And I'm especially pleased to be representing CVEP, the Coachella Valley Economic Partnership. I'm very happy that my boss, Joe Wallace, is in the office, or in the office here. He's not in the office, he's here for this presentation. So he's our CAO. Thanks for being here, Joe. Our mission there is to diversify the regional economy and bolster innovation and entrepreneurship. For those of you who don't know much about us, I would encourage you to check us out just at cvep.com, see what we do. So I am the GIS coordinator. Let me move the slide here. And I bet that has some of you scratching your heads, like, what is a GIS coordinator? I've never even heard of such a thing. So we're an agency that's very, very devoted to data-driven entrepreneurship and innovation. And as such, we're very unique in having a GIS professional on our staff, and I'm very proud to be that. So how many of you even knew what it stands for, GIS? I mean, okay, that's great. A few people here have. Well, as it says up there on the screen, it stands for Geographic Information Systems, or sometimes that's Geographic Information Science. And simply stated, GIS uses software and tools to access and organize data that's optimized to be looked at and analyzed with its location characteristics. So you know a lot about a place if you know, or a lot about data if you know where it is. Even things just like, is it next to, is it far away? And we can look at patterns and find some really interesting data that you might not see if you looked at it in a chart or a graph. So have any of you heard of Esri? Does anyone know that company? Yeah, I'm surprised more people don't know this. Esri is the Microsoft of GIS, and they are headquartered in Redlands, just up the 10. They have a campus of 3,000 employees there. It's a worldwide company. Billions of software is sold every year. Every industry uses them, from logistics to everywhere, because there's so much information you get out of optimization you do with logistics and or data analytics with using GIS data. So anyway, check them out. It's an amazing company. So for the most part, the data that you're going to be seeing here today that I'm going to be showing you is data that I've actually gathered through my GIS system and gathered from Esri's group of professionals. And they have an amazing team of statistics, officials, demographic experts, socioeconomic experts, and they use that expertise and the ability to analyze aerial photographs to make really accurate estimates of data in very specific local locations, which is really useful. So what's really powerful about that is that I don't know if you've ever wanted to go look for some data, especially about economic data. It often is in the county level. Well, think of the county we're in. Riverside County is ginormous, right? Our situation out here is very, very different than something you would see in Temecula or Riverside or even the far east part of the county. And another data set that we often get stuff in is the metropolitan statistical area. Well, we're in even a huger one because ours is Riverside and San Bernardino counties combined. So when I look at data in there, it's really difficult to really ascertain what's really important about the Coachella Valley. So the really great thing about GIS is that it's able to aggregate down data or break it down to smaller levels and able to show a more local story with data, which you'll see here in just a minute. So for instance, instead of looking at socioeconomic data, maybe you want to look at income levels or disposable income. Instead of looking at it at the county level, we can look at it at maybe even down to the census block level, which we'll show here in just a minute. So that's the real power of that. So what I'm going to be doing today, so I'm going to be presenting lots and lots of data for you. And I've been able to access it, like I said, through this GIS system. And we're going to explore these, let's see, what is it, 6 socioeconomic indicators. We're going to look at population growth. We're going to look at household income. We're going to look at annual income growth. We're going to look at how the age is distributed through the valley. And we're going to look at generations in the valley, a different way of looking at age. And we're going to look at educational attainment. But before I really get started into the data, I just want to make a little confession. I am not an economist. I am not a real estate expert. And I'm not even a statistician. I used to be an architect for a long, long time. But what I really am is a cartographer. And I'm a person who really cares about showing data and explaining data through graphs and maps to make it understandable to people and make it useful. Okay? So let's start looking at a bunch of maps. We're going to start looking at maps in 2 different levels. The first level will be the place, what they call the census place level. And I put this map up here just because I want to make sure that you're never going to see the city names again because there's just too much data to clutter them up. So get yourself acquainted. I think you all know what these cities are, but you'll see these colors and shapes of the cities. So just know that get your bearings. And then I'm also able to bring in data from the unincorporated areas, and sometimes those unincorporated areas have odd names, like Desert Edge or Vista Santa Rosa that's down by La Quinta. So just remember that those places are in there mixed in with the cities. Okay? Does that make sense? All right. So here's our first map. And just take a minute to take a look at this and try to get oriented because there's going to be a lot of these maps coming up and I want people to be comfortable with what they're looking at. This is actually called a choropleth map, which is a geeky GIS cartography term, which just means you're using color or shading to differentiate between different values or a different category, right? So in this situation, I'm going to be always showing things that are gray is usually lowest, green is going to be a middle ground, and orange is going to be the most intense or highest level. Okay, does that make sense? I'm also going to be putting the actual values on the actual places. And I'll also always have, we call it a legend, but the thing up in the upper right that shows the different values for each one of those categories or clusterings. And then I always try to put the US, or the average Coachella Valley number for the whole valley, so you can get a reference to what that is to the United States, to give some kind of reference. A lot of times these numbers don't really mean anything if you don't put in a reference to something else, right? So our first map is looking at annual population growth between 2019 and 2024, and this is an estimate from Esri. And what's really critical to know about this map is that these are for each year. So if you compound that, you can see there's actually going to be a lot of growth. So the lowest growth that we're estimating to have here is going to be a little bit below 1%. We're at 0.58%. And that happens to be at, where was that? Anybody see where that is? Oh, Sun City, right? And that kind of makes sense a little bit for those of you who know about Sun City. I think it would make sense. And up to the highest growth, which is going to be at Indio Hills, which is 3.13%. So imagine it, that's 3% growth every year for that area, which is kind of astonishing. And the most important thing too is that our growth for the valley compared to the US national growth, which of course is slowing, as is the growth in California, is actually going to be significantly higher than the US average. So we're going to see a lot of people moving in, and there's a lot of the birth rates are rather high in the younger generation here. So we're actually going to be seeing some significant population growth over the next few years. Throughout my presentation, so this is a typical map that you're going to be seeing, and I'm actually going to be building them up to make it a little bit easier to see each of the categories. But throughout this presentation, I'm going to be straightforward in presenting these data. I won't be doing a lot of prognosis or interpretation. And I'm hoping that you, as real estate professionals, will be thinking about what these data might actually help you with, thinking about the current and local real estate market and what the opportunities might be, or maybe some of the constraints that you might be able to see, and take a chance to look over these maps and really kind of study them, see what you can learn from them, and hopefully you'll get something from it. So this is our actual first chance now to look at this aggregated data. Actually, the place data is aggregated, but this is really broken down to what we call, this is the census block group, okay? So you can see how fine oops, pushed the wrong button. The detail is in each one of these little sections with a little white around it is a census block group. And that gives you a much better indication of something at the neighborhood level and what's actually going on. So you can see there's quite a difference when you look at something in a place, and then take a look now at the, you can see some patterns in there, but it's much more interesting to look at this more distributed and fine pattern in there. A census block group is the second to smallest census group that they have, and these are geographic units that have been broken down to actually make the census easier to do. And what's really nice about that is there's really a lot of great census data if you ever want to go look and study it. There's some actually really wonderful tools just on census.gov. You can get a lot of free data from there. A census block group is an agglomeration of more than, the smallest group is the census block. So a census block group is a bunch of census blocks put together. And typically they're a size of about 600 to 3,000 people. With an optimum size of about 1,500. So that kind of gives you the sense of how many people are in those areas. So you can see here when we start looking at annual population growth, it's more distributed than you would think. We've got a lot of areas of gray kind of in the central spine, but you can see there's always pockets of high growth distributed throughout. So it's always important to look at a more local level if possible. So now we're going to move on to looking at some income variables. And we're going to look at these in a number of different ways. And here's where we're going to start building up the map so you can take a little closer look at each one of the groupings. So what we're doing here is we're looking at median and average household income both. And that's important. I'll explain that in just a minute. So just to get you oriented, for each of the cities or places, I have the median income on the top and the average household income on the bottom. And it's important to look at the relationship between those two. A lot of times we only get average income, but it's really important to actually look at it both. And I've got kind of a little reminder down here of what we're looking at for each one of those. And here we're looking at the first, the lowest household income. Remember, this is household incomes. So there could be multiple earners in a house, but that's how they actually measure this. So, well, I'll get to in a minute exactly why we're looking at median and household income. But for those of you who don't remember, and I think it was mentioned before, for all your high school math classes and college classes, median is just the number where half of the population is below that and half of the population is above that. And that's a very important, and you'll see that they're very different. And that's telling, actually. So the color here, the color gray, represents the lowest average incomes from $36,000 to $60,000. So we're at $36,179 in thermal, down in the southeast, and up to $58,737 in Thousand Palms. Okay. Now we'll build up to the green. And the green represents the middle incomes. We're at from $65,540 in Sun Valley, all the way up to $97,850 in Sun City. Now, what's amazing about that, I think, is we're just at the middle income level right here, and we're already 3 times higher at the highest level than we are in thermal, which is astonishing, and we're just at the middle income level now. So the distribution of income in this valley is quite unusual, actually. Finally, let's look at the wealthiest places, and you'll see they're the ones that you probably would have guessed. We're looking at Rancho Mirage, Palm Desert, Indian Wells, and La Quinta. So we go from 101,356 in Palm Desert to 154, a little over 154 in Indian Wells. So we're looking at a 5-time difference between the poorest and the most wealthy neighborhoods or places. So you can see here that we have a huge range of income, which is somewhat unusual for a place of our size. Indian Wells has an average household income actually over 4 times that. It's not quite 5 times, but it's a little bit over 4 times that of thermal. And the difference is almost exactly the same in the median price, average prices also. So looking at these differences between median income and average income, a large disparity between these two can connote, between the 2 income variables there, can connote some income inequality or a big income distribution. What that really means is that in a lot of these places, there may be several or quite a few households that have very, very high income that's going to skew the average up. But if you keep the same distribution, the median is still going to be the same. So I can have a couple, households that have 10 million or 20 million income that's still in the upper half, but it then changes the average quite a bit. So if there's a big difference between those two, it means there's a big kind of lopsided distribution between those. So you can see it's important to look at both of those. We'll look and see here that Palm Springs, turns out, has the greatest disparity. So the median household income is only 61% of the average household income, so we've got a big spread there. However, up in Indio Hills, we actually have a distribution that is just 77%. So the median household is 77% of the average household income. And so a lot of times you're going to see average household incomes, but just remember it's not the whole story. And it's something to remember if you can, because average can be a little bit misleading sometimes. So now, once again, we're going to be looking at household income at the census block level. And you can see it follows the average pretty well. You see a lot of clustering of orange along the foothills, of course, and a few of the enclaves in north of the 10. But of course, we have some lower income up in the Desert Hot Springs area, and of course in the southeast. But look at how many little neighborhoods there are on here of low income. And the astonishing thing in the Coachella Valley is how closely adjacent these are. We could literally cross the street and change $90,000 in average income, which is quite amazing. So it's really unusual to have such a clustering and an interweaving of this kind of income story. It's not quite that way so much in other areas that are our size. Okay, I hate to do it, but I'm not going to show a map for a minute. Going to look at a graph. But what's important about this is we want to look at what the distribution of income levels are in the Coachella Valley. So that's in the orange bars. And we want to measure that against the United States, which is the green line. And we want to look at Riverside County, which is the gray line. You can see that we probably have a little much too distribution we're underrepresented in the middle income range. You can see how we're below all the lines there. We're overrepresented in the lowest income category, and we're actually overrepresented in the highest also, which is very interesting. So we're kind of a place of extremes. And if we look at it when we break it down to age groupings and what their income levels are, you see a little bit different story. except for the youngest grouping, of course, which is not going to have the highest incomes because it's of course, a younger population. The predominant income brackets are the middle ones, the ones that are from 15,000 to 49K. So we've got the ones that are green and orange. You can see they're the ones that are really the predominant ones through the whole graph, right? So that's the predominant income clustering for all age groups. The 45 to 54 age range is the strongest in the higher incomes when people, of course, are at the height of their job income and earnings. But remember that the high income brackets, although it shows it going down in some of the higher ones, a lot of these may be on fixed incomes or investment incomes that don't get recorded, but they still will probably have significant assets too. Okay, so now we're going to look at income growth instead of just what the picture is right today at 2019. So we're going to be looking at, once again, this is a 5-year period estimate, and each one of those percentages is per year, okay? So you think about those compounding over time. So we're looking at the lowest growth rate now, which is a little less than 2%, all the way up to 3%, the lowest being in thermal, that just below 2, and up to 3% in whitewater, okay? Now we're going to be looking at the green, which is the middle growth area. We're looking at between 3 and 4% growth in these areas annually. So kind of in the central part of the valley, the more established parts of the valley, we'll be seeing this. 3.29% in Bermuda Dunes, up to about 3.8 in Indio. And then finally, we'll be looking at, the highest estimated growth rates. We've got, that's from 4 to a little bit over 5% per year, which is kind of amazing. We're looking at 4.4% growth in Indio Hills, and 5.38% in Sky Valley. So just think about that. In Sky Valley, that would be a 5% growth rate every single year, which is kind of astonishing. So we're seeing a lot of growth here in the valley. And also note that for the whole Coachella Valley, we're at about 3.56 annual growth, which if you work it out is 30% higher than the national average. And this isn't a place, there's been a lot of really interesting work being done about people relocating from Los Angeles County and leaving and moving to places. Turns out people are moving into Riverside County, and hopefully that'll be we can be a part of the strong growth for that, for the Riverside County area. Okay, so now let's look at it, of course, at the census block level. And you can look at this more closely later when you have a little more time. But you can see, once again, it's a little bit more distributed than some of the others. You can see here that there's kind of a nice green central core, but it really breaks down when you look at it at the census block level, right? We've got a real range of growth areas through here, which is actually, I think, a great opportunity because it shows that it's not just in a few places. We've actually got pockets of growth that's going to be happening throughout the valley. Okay, now let's look at age. Age is a really interesting topic in the Coachella Valley, as everybody knows. So we're going to be looking at the median age, the point where half the population is younger and half the population is older. And this, of course, is a really important socioeconomic trait, a trend to look for at the local real estate market. We need to have young families moving in. That's a different kind of demographic you need than retirees and stuff like this. And once again, we have to emphasize this is the local market. All these data are about people who live here, and this is their permanent residence. Okay? So of course, we start with the highest median age here, which is orange. So I've slipped it. I've skipped here a little bit, making the orange be the first one. So we're looking at 55 to 74 years median age, which, think about it. So in Sun City, half of the people are above 74 and half of the people are younger. And we go down to, in this category, down to 55 years of age in Palm Springs. We move into the green area where we're getting a little bit younger. We're looking at 35 to the 55-year range. We've got 48.7 as a median in La Quinta and 37.2 in Bermuda Dunes. And then, of course, let's look at the youngest areas. And once again, this isn't probably a big surprise. It's the eastern places, Eastern Valley places, and Desert Hot Springs. So we're looking at 30. So we've gone down to 25. So we've gone from 75 down to 25, which is kind of amazing. 33.9 in Indio and 25.4 in Mecca. So think about that. Half of the population in Mecca is less than 25 years old. The text up there just shows the places, it's probably not that important, but it shows where there's going to be the biggest change in age. So we're going to have the highest growth in age from 56 to 60.3 in Desert Edge, but we're actually going to be getting a younger population over the 5 years in Indio Hills. And you real estate agents probably know exactly what that means. You know what's going on up there and probably can recognize what that probably means. So overall, the Coachella Valley is older than the national average of 38.5 years, pretty significantly older at 41.2, with the lowest ages skewing to the East Valley. But note that there are areas, even areas below the national median, which would be stuff in the green. Only Cathedral City and Vista Santa Rosa is actually in that category. So a big chunk of the population is actually higher, the age is higher than the US average. Okay, and then once again, let's look at it at census block level. You can see it gets a little bit more distributed, but for the most part, the southern areas against the foothills are older. We've got little enclaves up in the north of the 10. But once again, we do have places throughout, like places here in Cathedral City and stuff that actually have a younger population. And here's a graph. I think it's getting cut off at the bottom, but you can see it in your notes. It's just the age categories. It's like in 5 or 10 year categories. And you can see that we're definitely underrepresented in the middle ages, overrepresented to the right in the younger ages in both US and California standards. And we're just at it for, green was the US, right? I can't see anything there. So we're just right on par with the distribution of age for the youngest population. Okay, so we're going to look at it, age in just a slightly different way. Now we're going to look at generations, and we all love to look at generations, right, and talk about generations, so it's kind of a fun way to look at it. And it can be often more compelling than actually just looking at age distribution. So we know there's a lot of stereotypes of generations that are all true, right? So I would love to see, even in this room, just a debate between baby boomers and millennials, you know. I think that would be a lot of fun. There's a lot of great stuff on YouTube where baby boomers will test millennials on what they know, like a fax machine or a rotary phone and stuff like that. They're really great. You should check them out. They're funny. But beyond stereotypes, there are many characteristics about generations that can be useful when marketing, of course, to their specific needs and desires. And note on these maps when I show up that all the generations won't be shown because it just means what I'm showing here is what's the majority generation in that area. It just means that some of the other generations don't have as much of a population, so they don't pop up as the majority. So these maps show the predominant generation in each place and the concentration of that generation within it. So of course, we're going to start with the silent and greatest generation, people that were born between before 1945. And unsurprisingly, it's Sun City that has the highest predominance of this, with 52% of its residents. And then almost the whole rest of it is baby boomers living in that. Now we're going to add the baby boomers, which is probably a lot of us in here, I would guess. Yep, I hear some cheering for the baby boomers. They were born, baby boomers, this is controversial because people use these characteristics a little bit different, but usually it's between 1946 and 1964 is when that age range is, but it changes by different sources that you're looking at. And note that these concentrations now, when we're starting to look at baby boomers, are much lower, right? Because we got a much more of a distribution of age when we get into that generation. So for instance, in Thousand Palms, it's only 25% of the population is baby boomers, but that's still the biggest population, which means there's a big distribution of all the other generations within that. Now we're going to look at, the dreaded millennials. Here they are. And there's only 3 places in the Coachella Valley that represent those. You can see them in orange. And I could just imagine the baby boomers in this crowd going, oh, boo-hoo, there's only 3 places with millennials. So sorry for any millennials that are in there, but I'm a baby boomer. So, and then finally, we'll look at the Gen Z, which is a population born between 1999 and 2016. So it's about roughly 20 years to 3 years old. And once again, we're going to see this in the East Valley and Desert Hot Springs. So over a third of the people in that area are born then. And the table up in the upper right just shows the distribution relative to the US, right? So it's interesting to note that our 2 top generations are Gen Z and the baby boomers. They're 35 years apart. And note that the highest concentrations of the outlier generations make us a kind of young valley and a very old valley, both, which is very interesting, which is different than the US average. Okay, and finally I'm going to be showing really quickly, I'm going to be showing you educational attainment in the valley. So we're going to be looking at several categories, but the first one, and once again, this is the predominant, it doesn't mean that people don't have other degrees in here. It just means that the majority of the people in this population have this educational attainment, right? So, so we're going to start with, and of course this is a really critical indicator for our city, our valley, and something we really is a challenge that we really need to face. We start with 2 areas where the majority of the residents have less than a 9th grade education. This is significant to raising living standards in the areas in this valley. We move up to high school diploma, so that's people who just have a high school diploma. While there's much debate about the costs of higher education, data still shows the potential lifetime earnings for those with a just high school education are significantly lower than those with college degrees. A big chunk of the valley has the predominant people who have some college, but they haven't finished, or they haven't gotten their degree, which is very interesting. And finally, we've got bachelor's degrees being the predominant educational attainment in Indian Wells at 27%, right? Now, what that really means is that many of our residents with college degrees or higher can also be retired. And that's one of the things that skews things a little bit here, right? And they're not actually in the workforce, meaning the educational attainment statistics for the whole value may be skewed a little bit by showing higher attainment than the attainment of those who are actually in the workforce. This is especially alarming since the portion of Valley residents with bachelor's degrees is not quite half that of the US, as you can see up there. And our population with less than 9th grade education is more than double in the United States. So these are 2 outliers that we really need to be aware of in the Valley. And finally, let's look at the educational attainment at a closer level. And it's not quite as grim when you look at it in neighborhood levels. We've got some neighborhoods that actually have a prominent portion of the population that has graduate degrees. And you can see there's a little bit more breakdown here, associate's degrees and things like that. So when you look at it at a more neighborhood level, there's a little bit more nuance, okay? Okay, so you've seen a lot of maps, and I probably overwhelmed you with data, and I hope you take a little time to look at it when you get home. And please don't hesitate to get a hold of me at CVEP. I'm just david@cvep.com, and I'd be glad to help you. I've got massive amounts of socioeconomic data, really scary stuff like what kind of car you drive and all those kind of things. So if I could help you out. And I'm cautiously optimistic about the overall economic story here. Our population is going to grow at higher rates than the US. We're skewing a little bit older, but we do have a significant younger population. So thanks, and if you follow us, if you join our newsletter at CVEP, I have a thing called David's Data Digest. It comes out every 2 weeks, and it's just little snippets of information like this I think you might find really useful and helpful. So thanks for your attention. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David. Okay, next part. Let's see if, whoops, something got triggered there. So I have to look over on the right side. You can't see the bottom. It's all your fault. I know I thought. I know I'm not. So I'm on clock for 1 second. So we're going to bring up somebody else, Walter Neal. All right? From Franklin Loan. Because he's going to talk about the other components, interest rates, affordability, credit ratings, and wages as it pertains to getting home loans out here. Okay? There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you. All right, I'm going to be fast. I think great information that you're going to be able to use. That's going to make sense of what's going on. So we're going to look at mortgage data, and we're going to look at affordability factors. Does that work? All right, great. Now I get to hold a mic. That sucks. All right, so mortgage data and affordability factors. So let's jump into it here. We're going to be looking at all the mortgages Franklin Loan Center did in 2018 and all the mortgages we did in 2019, and we're going to compare them for trends. And so in 2019, up through September 31st, we did 2,037 units. These are mortgage transactions we only closed in Southern California. I'm going to say 90% of those are in Riverside, by the way. And in 2018, we did 2,343 units. So we're going to take these 2 calendar years and we're going to break them down by these blue boxes. We're going to look at the sales price and loan amounts. We're going to look at product type. We're going to look at occupancy type. We're going to look at income by product. We're going to look at rate by product. We're going to look at assets, how much money they have in the bank by product. We're going to look at the down payment by product. We're going to look at the FICO scores by product. And we're going to look at the transactional type. And we're going to do it, as I said, 19 to 18. And we're going to see if there's any trends from the mortgage data that we actually think makes sense and maybe can help us understand how to better market ourselves or sell ourselves in this environment. Oh boy. All right, so you guys have all this in your booklet. It's going to be easier for you to see here. But what I've done is I've broken out the amount of mortgages we've done every month by product type. And you can see the left box here. 2018 is a conventional loan. We did 121 conventional loans a month. And in 2019, we did 154 conventional loans a month. So you can see we've done a lot more monthly mortgages in the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac region, which is the main area that people finance. So you've seen an increase in financing. These over here is jumbo mortgages, kind of flat. Non-QM mortgages, which is creative financing, kind of flat. FHA flat, VA. So you can see that we're doing a lot more units per month on mainstream financing. I'll get more into that later. This looks at occupancy and monthly mortgage. So primary residences. This is a primary residence. We did 159 primary residents a month in 2018. And year to date, 2019, we did 190. So you can see an exorbitant amount of growth on the primary residence market. But look at the second home and investor. It's flat. We did 18 a month compared to 17. Second home, 18 compared to 19. So when it comes to the mortgage world, the people that are financing homes are the people who are going to be living in them. And that's a 20% increase on primary residence purchases between 18 and 19. So let's look at the transactional mix. In 2018, 80% of the mortgages we did at Franklin were purchase transactions. 14% were cash out mortgages, and 6% were rate and term refinances. So we're 80-20 split. 8 of every 10 loans we did was a purchase transaction. 2019, you can see the product mix has changed slightly. Interest rates are obviously better. So we've done 70% of our business were purchase transactions, and 20% of our 30% of our business was refinancing. So that would make sense. All right, price and loan amount changes between 2018 and 2019. I don't think anyone in this room would disagree with this. The purchase prices on average that we financed was $418,000 in 2018. And in 2019, we're averaging $435,000 in the sales price. So we're showing a 4% increase in values year over year in the mortgage business. If you look at the loan amounts as well, the average loan amount we did at Franklin Loan Center in 2018 was $329,000. In 2019, so far year to date, $358,000. So it's up 8%. So people are buying more expensive homes and they're financing bigger loan amounts. Monthly income. How's the monthly income compare from 2018 to 2019? If you look at conventional loans, income's up 4.5%. And that's mainstream financing there. That's Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So we're seeing people making more money. What about in jumbo, the jumbo world, when you're borrowing high dollar amounts? We've seen incomes increase 5% in the jumbo world. So more people are probably buying expensive homes because they're making more money. Look at the non-QM space. This non-QM space is like the bank statement programs. This is sort of the stated income of our new world. And you've seen a huge jump of income there between almost 38%. Look at FHA loans. First-time home buyer, typically your entry buyer. Income's up 7.5% for everyone getting an FHA loan. And VA is up 4.6%. So the one thing that's constant is people are making more money. And I'm going to get into this at the very end. This helps for affordability factors. So that's a very promising sign right here that people are making more money. People continue to spend and buy homes. Rates. I don't think anyone here doesn't know rates have gone down between 2018 and 19. If this is the first time you've heard of it, you might want to get another business. But conventional loans are down 0.5% between 2018 and 2019. Jumbo loans are down 0.3% between all the loans we did in 18 and 19. Same thing with non-QM, down 0.02, down 40 basis points, and VA down 50 basis points. So everyone who's borrowing money is borrowing money at cheaper rates. So that's also helping for affordability factors. Assets. How much money does people have in the bank? This is when you get a loan application, I pull data for all the assets someone disclosed on their application. That's 401k, that's retirement accounts, that's stocks, that's bonds, that's a gift. If they're receiving a gift from family, that's going to be in there. That's their checking savings. This is how much money people have that they're disclosing when they're trying to convince someone to lend them money. So most people put their best foot forward and show us all of their money. So between 2018, $233,000 in the bank on a conventional loan, it's down to $179,000. So it's a $54,000 difference we're seeing on loan applications. Same thing with jumbo, $604,000 down to $417,000. Non-QM down. FHA down, actually VA up. So the only one that we're seeing borrowers have more money in the bank when they're taking a loan out in 2019 and 18 was VA. So that might come as a surprise because stock market's at an all-time high. But you might read into this further that people are confident they're spending money, they're making more money. Maybe they don't care so much about saving as they used to, okay? So average down payment, 2018 for 19. So we just showed you people have less money in the bank, okay? But now how much more or less money are people putting down to buy homes? Conventional loans, the down payment's down by about $1,000, so basically flat. And this is mainstream lending here, guys. This accounts for 50% of all the mortgage transactions in the country are these conventional loans. Jumbo loans, down payments up. That's not surprising. Jumbo loans are higher priced homes. You got to put more money down. Non-QM, which are the creative type of financing loans, down payments down. FHA's flat, VA's up. So it would appear here most people are not putting a lot more money down than they did in 2018. So people have less money in the bank and they're not really putting a lot more money down. So where's their money going? FICO score. So if they're spending more and not saving as much and they're taking out more debt, let's say, where you would see that debt appear is in people's credit rating, because the more debt you take out, the lower your FICO score is going to go. And so if you look at the average FICO score for conventional loans, basically it's flat. Jumbo, flat. Non-QM, a little down. FHA, this is obviously your first-time home buyer. They have less money, more debt, so their scores are always lower, but that's pretty consistent. And VA is pretty consistent. So I was quite surprised to see the FICO scores actually being flat or slightly up, because I'm seeing people spend more and save less. So that's a good sign as well that people aren't overspending for their ability to borrow or pay their debt. So that's a very positive sign, guys. Okay, so I just went through all the mortgage transactions and I pointed out by product, by program, by FICO, by debt, what we're seeing. Those are facts. That's what we see on the mortgage applications. But there's what's called an affordability factor. And when the affordability to buy a home can't be met by the median income makers in a market, that's when you know you have a problem. And so what I would like to do this morning is focus on the 3 things that affect affordability to buy a home, and that's income, down payment, and rate. And how do I do that? Well, I have to start with a formula. And so I'm going to use income ranges between $80,000 and $120,000 a year. I'm going to look at a down payment range between $50,000 and $150,000 a year. And I'm going to look at interest rates between 3.5% to 5.5%. So I'm looking at those 3 factors: income, down payment, and interest, which directly affects affordability. I'm also going to assume when I do this that these borrowers are qualifying at a 43% debt to income ratio. I'm going to be using a 30-year fixed mortgage with PITI, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And I'm going to assume they have $750 of liabilities, car payments, credit card equals $750 a month. So those are the assumptions I have to make to be able to give you guys an example of if affordability is good or bad in this market based on mortgage data. So here you've got the effective income on affordability. I've got $80,000 all the way up to $120,000, and then down here below it says income. And so what I've done is I've kept the interest rate on this scenario at 4%. Flat for each income range. And I've also kept the down payment at $75,000 flat. So the 2 variables are fixed. So the only variable I'm changing on this slide is how much money our borrowers make or your clients make. So if someone comes in to see me today and $80,000 of income, they're going to qualify for a $413,000 home. If they've got $120,000 of income, they're going to qualify for a $658,000 home. So you can see the effect that income has on affordability and what you can buy. I mean, that's a $240,000 difference in sales price that they can purchase based on a $40,000 difference in income. So that's a pretty big difference there. So let's see what impact a down payment has. So in this situation, I kept the interest rate flat again at 4%. I looked at the down payment at 4%. I did the income at, the slide's cut off on that. What's the income bottom say in the bottom? I did the income at $100,000 across the board, and I just changed the down payment from $50,000 to $150,000. So I kept 2 factors stable, and I only changed the down payment number. And with $50,000 down, you can afford a $521,000 home. With a $150,000 down payment, you can qualify for a $597,000 home. So you can see the impact down payment has on your ability to buy in sales price. So that's the second factor you need to look at when you're looking at affordability. Does this market have affordability? And the third factor you need to look at is interest rates. Interest rates affects affordability because when you borrow money, you can borrow cheaper. So based on the down payment being $75,000, and based on the, what did I do for this one? I don't know. Down payment $75,000 and income at $100,000. All I did was change the interest rate, so you can see what impact the interest rate would have on home affordability. So at 5.5%, you could qualify for a $472,000 home. If rates got all the way down to 3.5%, which is where they were here about a couple months ago, you could have bought a home for $557,000. If rates go up to 4.5%, you can qualify for $515,000. So if they go up 1%, your borrowers, your clients can buy a house for about $40,000 less. So this is the third factor in home affordability. So let's look at all 3 factors together and figure which one affects affordability the most. Well, based on a fixed scenario and me only changing 1 factor on all 3 slides, the one that has the biggest impact on affordability and will allow us to continue to have a healthy market is income. If you're making more income, the affordability factors are in our favor. So $658,000 home is the biggest home you could buy based on the 3 affordability factors if the income piece was rising. Second most important was the down payment. How much money you put down had the second biggest impact. With the same formula, keeping the same constants, This borrower could buy a $597,000 home. So that's $60,000 less than someone who created more income instead of creating more assets in the bank. And the one that had the least impact on affordability is interest rates. If the interest rates were 5.5% tomorrow, it would cause someone to only be able to buy a house for $557,000. So rates are important, but rates isn't what's going to make this market or any market affordable. It's income, folks. People making more money is the biggest factor in affordability. And so based on the mortgage data that we just went through, I'm not seeing debt getting out of control. I'm not seeing affordability at a point we need to be concerned about. I'm a little concerned that the money that people are saving is lower, but I think you can look at the flip side of the coin and realize that people are spending, they're confident, and if they're confident, that's good for all of us because retail spending, residential spending, people are out there. And so these are all positive signs that the people that are borrowing money think we are in a good spot. So that's awesome. Okay, so to recap, what are we seeing trending on the mortgage business? Income levels up. That is fantastic, and that's going to encourage people to buy homes. Second thing we're seeing, interest rates are down. That's going to help people to afford to buy more homes as well. So we'll have to watch that. The rates did, by the way, if you're not aware, did jump about 1/4 to 3/8% the last week or two. So hopefully they'll come back down next year, which we're forecasting for that anyway. Number 3, sales prices are up. I think everyone knows here home values are coming up. So we're seeing people buying more expensive homes on their mortgage applications every day. Down payments are down. People are buying higher priced homes and they're putting less money down and their loan amounts are higher. So they are buying homes and they are spending more, but they're putting less of their hard-earned money into the mortgage and they're borrowing more money from the banks. Borrower assets in the banks are down. We showed you that. Across the board, almost every category for every borrower and every product type, they're saving less money and they're spending more money. FICO scores are flat. This is positive because people aren't borrowing debt that they can't pay. I'm not sure if you guys know how a FICO score works, but the best score you can have is 850, which means you're 15% likely to miss your next payment on a car or mortgage. There is no perfect credit risk because the past is no guarantee for the future. If you have a 600 FICO score, that means you are 40% likely to miss a payment on your car or mortgage next week. So there is no perfect credit risk. Even if you paid your debt perfectly and flawlessly for 80 years, you are still 15% likely not to do it tomorrow. That's the way the credit system is set up. Mortgage financing up. We are doing more transactions. I showed you by month and I showed you by product. So mortgage financing is up, and obviously refinance activity is up as well because rates are down. Owner-occupied borrowing is up. We are seeing more people move here, live here, work here. We are not seeing more remote owner financing. We are not seeing people buying more second homes in 2019 and 18. We are not seeing more investment property purchases in 2019 than 18. This is becoming more and more a market where people are moving. I can tell you 5 years ago, it was very rare for someone to buy here and be working for a company in San Francisco, but remote working is a big deal, and a lot of people are moving here for home affordability and getting those silicon high-paying jobs, but they're telecommuting and they're working from home. Affordability factors look great. I got to agree with Michael. After breaking down this data, Michael and I talked about this a couple months ago. I said, why don't I get all the mortgage data and let me just see if we see any trends, and if we're surprised by the trends and it's telling us something that is not actually happening. And all the mortgage data I just went through with you all looks promising. So I'm gonna agree with Michael. I see that we're in a good spot. There's no red flags in the mortgage financing world right now. I actually can tell you right now, nationally, the average loan to value on a home is 33%. So that's 33% nationally. So no one's walking from their homes. The delinquency, 90-day delinquency that CoreLogic puts out, is at 3% for 90-day delinquencies. The housing market, not only in the Coachella Valley, but in the country, is strong. And so there's not much, folks, for us to be concerned about. At this point, I guess, are we taking questions, Michael?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, that wraps up my presentation. So if you guys have any questions for anyone, let's hear them.
Anybody have a question for any of the speakers?
All of the real estate sales on an annual basis that are getting financing in the valley?
Yeah, so I can tell you, historically speaking, the Coachella Valley is 60% cash. Everyone always asks me who my competition is, and I always tell people my competition is not the banks, it's not the other mortgage bankers, it's cash. So I'm only giving you a 40% market snapshot. There is a lot of cash transactions out there, and I'm not capturing that data.
All these projections for 5 years into the future, have you tracked what their accuracy was in the last 10 or 15 years?
That's a very good question. No. Be perfectly honest, no, but that would be a really great thing to do. Yeah. Oh, the question was, these 5-year projections, have we ever gone back and looked to see if the previous 5-year projections were real or if they turned out? And no, I've never done that. So.
Now, I have, with our projections, yeah, we have, and they're spot on. No, they really are.
Just to clarify, I'm sure Esri does, because I'm sure they take that into account, how accurate they were. But no, I personally have never gone back and looked at that. So.
Any other questions?
Okay, well, we're going to have the Tale of 9 Cities presentation in February. Come again. That is going to be, we're going to talk about, are we forming another bubble? Someone asked me that. We'll get into that and and the forecasting, what's going to happen the rest of the year. So.
Thank you, everybody. Just two announcements. Thank you to our sponsors. I also would like to remind you of our next Market Watch. And those of you who are homeowners or homes advertisers, we're on a deadline, so be sure you get a hold of your sales rep. Thank you, drive safely, and may I be the first to wish you happy Thanksgiving and a wonderful holiday season.